Today we're making Lachsschinken, or as you could translate it, pork lox. It's a smoked cured ham made from the rear end of the pork loin. Pieces look like this. Normally you would trim the fat off. I like the fat on it, so that's why I'm gonna leave it on. A little bit of fat in an otherwise very lean product is always a flavor boost. You see all that grizzly bits here? We don't want that part, so I'm just gonna trim that out. Of course, we don't throw that away. As usual, we use it in a stew or we use it for sausage making. Never waste anything. This is a perfectly nice piece. And of course, I'm gonna make a second, except this one is more towards the end. So this one has a lot more of the grizzly bits on it. I'm gonna trim off this side that again has these like grooves in it. You do not want any pockets that could harbor pathogens. We have to find out the weight because the weight determines how much cure we need. For that, I'm using my trusty scale. So this is 900 grams and this is the same weight. So you need about an ounce of the curing salt per every 2 pounds of meat. A quick word about the curing salt. I said that in other episodes. The curing salt is 0.5% nitrate in it. You need to take 1 part pink cure number 2 and 12 parts regular salt, and then you have the right concentration and you need 30 grams of that. Further, you need 2 grams of sugar per kilogram of meat. 2 grams is about that much. That's not a lot, that's a teeny weeny bit amount, and I'm using powdered sugar because it distributes easier. We get the sugar and the curing salt together with the piece of meat into a vacuum bag or into a Ziploc bag. I've prepared some vacuum bags here. I like to vacuum this. Since we weighed the amount of cure we're using, you cannot over-cure this piece. There is exactly the right amount of curing salt in the bag together with the meat. Now I'm just going to add the sugar. It will distribute more in the bag because water will be released from the meat and that will distribute all the parts. You just have to rub it in and get everything into the bag. Turn the top over so that way you don't mess up the area where you seal the bag. Alright, in it goes. And now I'm just going to put everything that was on the plate and toss that in here. Because remember, we weighed this, so this is the exact amount we need. And this is it. This time around, a little trick, mix the sugar with the salt, makes it a bit easier. And in it goes. Get all the curing salt in here. And this is pretty much already step 1. So if you're using a regular Ziploc bag, try to evacuate as much air as possible. If you have a vacuum machine, then this of course is easy business. Vacuum and seal. There's number 1. So there are our 2 pieces. They have to cure now for about 2.5 days per inch. So these are 4 inches thick. We need to cure them for about 10 days. Write today's date on that bag. And now I'm gonna pop this into my fridge for the next 10 days. These pieces of ham have been curing for 15 days now and it's time to unpack them. The next step is to rinse these pieces off. There's not a lot on these since we didn't have any spices or anything in it. Pat this dry. Since these pieces have been curing for 15 days, we now let them rest for half the curing time, which is around 7 days. Ideally would be a climate chamber or curing chamber. Not too many people have those, they're expensive. So we gotta help ourselves with a bowl and a little bit of tin foil. Put these pieces of meat into the bowl and I'm trying to put them in a way that all sides kinda get air. So in this case, I'm leaning them on the sides. Now we just cover this with tin foil. And once we've done that, we poke a bunch of holes in there. This goes into the fridge for 7 days. Since we're using a semi-optimal environment, just check in on it every day or every other day. Any liquid, wipe it out with a paper towel. It's been a week for this meat in my fridge. As you can see, it dried off nicely. It's firm. That's exactly what we want. Let's prep this for smoking. Essentially, you can smoke it as is if you have a smoker where you can lay it down. If you want to smoke it hanging, you either have to attach a string to it or you can use one of these butcher hooks that you can just hook into the meat. I'm opting for a string. I'm just using a thin filleting knife. You could use a clean screwdriver, for example. That would work perfectly well. I'm just making a little slit horizontal into the meat. See the position of the knife? You don't want this to fray out from the weight. Now you need something to thread the twine through. I found this in my drawer. I think it's an old Tupperware thing to peel oranges. I just lay this on here and push it through. Since my smoker isn't all that tall, I'm going to keep the loop pretty short. There, that should do. And that's all the prep we need. They go into the smoker first thing in the morning. With these things, you want to make sure that those ribs in the middle are exposed. Otherwise, the fire will burn over, and that is a shortcut. You want to let it burn for a few minutes or as long as it burns, so that you get a basic ember. Let's put in our smoke and put on our lid. This should smoke for around 8 to 10 hours. Maybe I'm going to do 2 sessions with 5 to 6 hours each. We'll see how it turns out in a few hours. Of course, this is cold smoking. The bottom of the barrel 49, the top 52. Bottom of the barrel 52, top of the barrel 54. Even right next to the embers we only get 220 degrees. I ended up with 2 courses of smoking for the pork lox. After the first round it just wasn't smoky enough. So in total this was smoked for 2 times 5 hours with resting overnight in between. This should be resting for another 2-3 days so that the smoke can penetrate to the inside. Nonetheless, we want to see what this looks like, so I'm gonna cut one. Now won't you look at that? This is excellent. And while I'm munching on a few slices of this, how about you like the video and you click subscribe so you don't miss another video. And there you have pork lox. Easy to make, very tasty. It goes really well on a cracker with some cream cheese and a little of that on top. Nice. And if you need more things that go well on a cracker with some cream cheese, then you should watch my smoked salmon recipe next.